Hello, my fellow Alaskans. How are we all doing out there on this bright and beautiful, it's just, well, we can call it that anyways, evening here. It's about 8 p.m. Sorry for the delay of getting started today. Let me just double check and make sure I can hear myself being played here on the screen. And we should be live everywhere. Hey, there I am. I see myself on Facebook. All right. So that is a good sign that you can also hear me too. So let's get this show on the road. Alaska News Update and what has been going on in our great state of Alaska the last week, and everything you've ever wanted to know. Lots of stuff has been happening. Today they got to hear earlier in the House committee, not the House committee, but in the House floor session that they had HJR 4, which was a House Journal resolution for the renaming of Denali to McKinley. And there was a lot of hoopla, and you'll probably see a lot of write-up on that today out there about all the hoopla that they had. And what can we say? The Republicans that were in the room, the Republican minorities, wanted to add a lot of stuff to that bill in acknowledgement of thanking President Trump for opening back up our access to being able to develop up our resources in all the different areas like the Cook Inlet and up on Anwar, and be able to see about getting the Ambler Road opened up, and all of these things that they had added to it. I listened to the entire session that they had today on that, and it's worth listening to. When it came down to the vote, which was the picture that I had posted a little bit earlier today about the that particular vote that they had, was all the Republicans that voted yes for it and the Senate majority all voted no for the amendments that they wanted to attach to it. So when it came time for the final vote to do it, there was 0 amendments that got attached to it, and they voted to keep it called Denali instead of McKinley. And an HJ vote is nothing more than a House Journal resolution that they send off to DC so that the President Trump can be able to see what the will of the legislative body in Juneau wants to do. Personally, I can care less if it's named Denali or Mount McKinley, but we own the land now. We are Alaskans, and we should have the final say on what that should be called. I was born and raised, and it was called McKinley throughout the majority of my life until they reverted it back to Denali again. So for me, like I said, it makes absolutely no difference. But that's just a side note on the news of what is going on today. Take a moment right now to like and share this video. I see people that are on YouTube right now. Hopefully we'll gain a couple of extras here on Facebook and elsewhere. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble. You can also find us on our website when we're live. We're all at Politadick, and we're also on X right now, and we are streaming live there. Glad to see someone just joined us on X. Don't hesitate to send me messages as we're doing this. I've got a bunch of new software. I was hoping to be up and running for this broadcast at 6 o'clock tonight. When I opened up my broadcasting software and saw all the updates that they had done, I was absolutely floored. Everything I had previously set up about a week ago completely changed, and I virtually had to start everything out from scratch once again. So let's just get right into what I have to say today in just a second. I know I'm kind of procrastinating here in some ways, but I'm going to do something here real quick. And if, like the rest of you, if you haven't shared this video yet, please take a moment right now to do that. and get it shared all over the different platforms. I'm going to share it to every group that it will allow me to share it to. So give me just a second, and we will get the main ones here knocked out so that we get it broadcasted all throughout this great state of Alaska, and everybody will have a chance to be able to share this, see this, and get the full update of what's been going on for the past week. Almost there. They've really sped this process up. It's been a while since I've done this while live video. And almost got them all there. And a few more. See how many of these will allow me to do. I am a part of a lot of groups, so let me tell you, it is amazing how many you get when you've been working on this stuff as long as I have. Okay, let's get right down into the nitty-gritty of everything that we got going on. First part that happened last week, of course, they had their opening ceremonies on Tuesday. They got all inaugurated in as new legislators there for the 34th legislative session in Juneau. One of the first things that they accomplished in doing was having a press availability, and the Senate majority in control of Juneau have officially declared they have flipped the bird to our Alaska executive branch and Alaska's long-term future of Alaska for short-term political gains. Alaska legislative majorities have made it perfectly clear that they were going to push through special interest agenda for the BSA, base student allocation. Defined benefits and pension is one of their #1 priorities, and between the two of the BSA and defined benefits, that's going to take up a lot of oxygen in the room for a while. The special interests are all on board, ready to go to action on that. I'll show you a few videos a little bit later on of what I mean by that. The next major priority that they say they're going to do is take a deeper look at the woes of the Cook Inlet LNG, which has been decades in the making. There is a lot of roadblocks there going on. As I get into today's discussion, I'll bring up a little bit more about that here in just a little while. We have a unelected set of bureaucrats out there that are working against us. These unelected bureaucrats, NGOs like Alaska, AFL-CIO, openly came out and said this week that our governor is going to veto their priorities and acknowledge the votes to override the vetoes just are not there. And their priorities is BSA, defined benefits and pensions, and they kind of acknowledged the LNG or the energy woes that our state is currently facing, but they have nothing, not a single solution do they offer during their little video that they put out earlier last week. And we'll just keep on going here. They can care one little bit how much of our taxpayers' money they waste fighting to make their special agenda, their special interest agenda that they have happen, or how long it takes to fulfill that agenda. Currently for them, it's all about socially engineering public opinion to match their long-term political gains. Of course, it's all about money. And they are aiming for, in the end, given enough time, one too many Alaskans are going to end up buying into their propaganda. And we'll end up electing a governor or enough into the majority of the legislators into both of the House and the Senate to be able to override the vetoes and will not hesitate to bankrupt our state for their own financial gain. One thing is for sure, there is no way in hell to pay for any of the $1.3 billion increase that they want to add to the budget that they want, unless they steal the rest of our permanent fund dividends and add a 3% sales tax or some sort of a tax. 3% is the base minimum, just to be able to cover it. Our revenue that is coming in is not going to be enough to cover it now or in the future. More on that here in just a little while. So we've got the North Star Borough in Fairbanks. GVA is raising their cost of electricity to the people of Fairbanks. Why? They're claiming it is because there are fewer people to pay the bills. That statement, of course, is only partially true. There are fewer people living there now, but that is not the only reason why for the higher prices. The main reason is the green energy comes with a higher price tag. There was a write-up this week, a week ago, about the main LNG supplier contract is ending soon, and there is not enough being produced to meet the demand. No amount of solar wind can ever offset what they're about to lose. They have started issuing warnings to those living to be prepared for possible rolling brownouts, and that the Healy coal plant will have to ramp up production to offset their power loss, especially when the LNG contract gets not renewed. Green energy, as we have all know, doesn't work in the winter. More on that later. Clean LNG or dirty coal, dear NGO activists in assembly, you actively attack what provides the most majority of the energy needs that we have here in Alaska, claiming you are saving the planet. Then when those green energy plans fail over and over again, you double down and say we are just not using it correctly and it will work this time. We promise, they say. Just like socialism, in the end, no matter how they tweak it, it always fails to deliver what they promised it would. Can someone please make it make sense? Why do they continue to get away making the North Star Borough a place nobody can afford to live? And this is everywhere within our state, this holds true. Now, the Alaska Ledge Finance Committees, the oil companies, LNG producers, Alaska Department of Revenue, or AKDOR, and Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Alaska DNR, have given updates on their current standings and future forecasts to the House and Senate committees in the last couple of days. After listening to what they have had to say, Alaska Ledge, it appears, will do nothing, absolutely nothing, to deregulate what would open up production once again and produce a growing tax base that they get. With current projections showing future tax revenue is going to take a nosedive in just a couple of years. If you don't believe me, let's just hear the words of Bert Stedman here today during the House floor session that they had. This is his little tidbit on that.
On the AGDC, Alaska Gasline Development Corporation's $4.2 million request for phase one of the project, I'd like to have you take a look at the cost of shutting down AGDC, both operating and capital, so we can have that conversation also as we go forward.
All right, seems I may have just had a problem with the audio on that. Let me see if I can figure out what just happened. Oh, nope, it was doing just fine. Man, I stopped that video for absolutely nothing. Let's do it one more time. See if what he says here, I'm not sure how much part of the audio problems I'm having. I didn't get everything fully set up on the broadcasting software today. Oh, nope, didn't get to hear it all. So let's do it one more time just to make sure.
On the AGDC, Alaska Gasline Development Corporation's $4.2 million request for phase one of the project, I'd like to have you take a look at the cost of shutting down AGDC, both operating and capital, so we can have that conversation also as we go forward.
Chair Stedman, yes.
Okay.
Okay, that time I know I got everything went through just fine. Still got some glitches in the software. Normally it would have just transitioned right back into me onto the screen, but for some reason that feature has been disabled and I didn't have enough time to be able to figure out how to get that to rework again. But that was Bert Stedman on the floor today, and what he was talking about was the Alaska Gas and Development Corporation, and you heard the question that he asked of them to produce for him. What is it going to take to eliminate them from the budget, completely get rid of them? So that bottom line, just that kind of points out that they're just going to take anything that we have for future revenue, and it just points out the blatant fact that they don't care about the future of us here in Alaska. It all has to do about how they personally can make sure that their special interests can get all the money that they want, but not produce any new revenue to cover what the special interest agenda really is out there. If you haven't taken the time to like and share this video, please do. But that is basically what came through with the Alaska Ledge during their finance committees, is that they really don't care about where the money comes from, because for them, the money is going to come from our permanent fund dividend. That is their sole source of revenue. When you look at what they're bringing in actual tax-based revenue out there, it's barely covering just under half of what they're trying to spend on a regular basis each year. And a good chunk of that is because of the expansion on healthcare was one of the things that is causing that to happen. They're giving way too much money to the University of Alaska. They were talking somewhere around another $50 million to almost $75 million increase to the university in little things that they want to add on to their budget for them to do this next following year. And looking at what they're talking for the BSA increase, that's almost a $750 million that they want to add in. If you're wondering where I'm getting the $1.3 billion deficit from, it's defined benefits and pensions and the BSA increase combined all together. And listening to both committees, education last week, and listening to the governor's the proposed budget today of what the governor's wishes and dreams are, and listening to them question that, it became very clear that they really, really don't care how much they steal from us. How many of us that depend upon that permanent fund dividend to cover the higher costs, especially the rural areas, where their fuel oil costs, their cost of energy costs is through the roof, and there's no money to be able to pay for it. They wonder why there's an exodus out of Alaska happening on a regular basis. It just made it unattainable for us to even live here anymore. Now let's see, where were we at here? So they have openly admitted that they refuse to flip the bird to the feds, terrified about what the federal government will do if they cut that off that feed trough. God forbid that they make Alaskans' future their priority. It's all about short-term political gains that they get in hand right now, and it all that really matters to them. The NGO activists are crying a river to the courts, declaring about the salmon and the trees and the caribou and the polar bears. And every time we turn around, they're filing another lawsuit against any development that we have in Alaska, and they're using these same old tired principles over and over again. These things have been studied to death over the past 5 decades, and so far, none of their what-ifs have happened in our great state of Alaska. When and if they do, I'll be absolutely shocked. But until that day happens, please sit down and shut up. That's my opinion. Sit down and shut up. You're just stopping the future of Alaskans and preventing the future generations from wanting to even be here anymore. They're just going to pack up and leave because it's unattainable to be able to live here in Alaska and be able to afford it. These special interests continue to make outrageous theories and predictions that nothing will survive if we develop up postage stamp parcels of land for long-term stability in Alaska's current and future generations to come. They have over and over again filed every conceivable lawsuit that you can think to stop all development. This is even something that Governor Mike Dunleavy brought up during his press conference that he had the other day. Now, don't worry. There are small slivers of hope. Hillcorp, when they did their introduction to the finance committees here this past week of where they stand at currently and where things are going into the future, They have on the map, if you go back and actually go back and look at what they had produced, Hillcorp did show one area on the map in the Cook Inlet that they have leases in that they can't do anything which also has enough LNG to power Alaska's needs for the next 100 years. No more shortages for those living on the rail belt if only they are allowed to make that development happen. Sadly, they are terrified of the feds and the NGO activists will do to them if they do. Like I keep saying, it's all about the short-term political gains for our legislators out there for the future of Alaska, not the long-term outcomes that we Alaskans so desperately need to be hearing and seeing. Climate change. Climate scam. That's all I can say that is. It's just an outright climate scam. What mythical climate event can the fringe activists point to next that is actually proven to be true? The generalization of climate change is horrendously overused. One of the reporters was questioning Governor Dunleavy during his press briefing about the what-ifs of climate change. Reporter wouldn't go into any specifics about what mythical theory of climate change catastrophe he was referring to. So exactly how is our governor supposed to give a hypothetical answer of what ifs if they can't even point to one specific thing? These NGO special interests have openly declared war on Trump's agenda for the future of our nation and Governor Dunleavy's agenda of the future for Alaska. Alaska Majority Leader Senator Kathy Giesel went as far as to say, we're not a colony to be pillaged. If you don't believe me, take a look at this.
I think it's important for us to think about the fact that we're not a colony to be pillaged.
How's that? You know, we're not a colony. We haven't been a colony for well over 75 years, about that, since the last time we were not an actual part of the United States. And for her to be bringing up that reference there, I hate to say it, she's outright racist. And that's my opinion there on what her opinion of us being a colony. Again, she's not the only one. I showed you the little video about Bert Stedman there saying that he wants to stop the Alaska Gas and Development Corporation from being able to do anything for future investments on the LNG pipeline. If our federal government truly cared about the independence of our nation when it comes to the long-term energy needs for it, they would be looking at ways to be able to come up with that $42 billion that they claim it's going to cost to get that LNG line put in from Prudhoe Bay down to where Nikiski is so that it can get put onto the ships and shipped down to the lower 48 and throughout the entire nation for the LNG gas that they need. We have an endless supply up there. Just the known reserves of LNG up on the Prudhoe Bay is enough to power the entire United States and pretty much the entire world for at least the next 100 years, if not longer. I mean, if it was just for Alaskans' use, we would have for our lifetimes and the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that. We probably could go the next 1,000 years just with LNG and never have a single worry about what do we do for our energy needs ever again. But you got to have a legislative body that's willing to actually stand their ground and do something to get that development happening. And as you heard from Kathy Giesel and Bert Stedman, and they are the majority. They are the opposition. They are only 2 out of the ones of the 21 there that really can care less. Excuse me. Let me wet my whistle there for a second. All right, so who is to blame? It's easy to point fingers at those on all levels of government for our current state of Alaska is in. But in reality, they are only one small cog of this entire engineered mess. The real blame should fall directly on the shoulders of the unelected NGO activists. Who are these activists, you say? They are Alaska AFL-CIO, NEA Alaska, the Native Movement, Fairbanks Climate Action Coalition, the Rasmussen Foundation, Alaska Municipal League, Alaska Federations of Natives, etc. These unelected NGOs, public and private, have been running things for decades and decades. They and the elected are responsible for every hurdle Alaska is facing today. Just looking at the problems happening in Fairbanks, GVA has systematically been forced to dismantle everything that Alaskans have and still use for generations for energy. Fuel oil, LNG, being able to use your own fireplace, coal, power plants. They've systematically tried to get them shut down over and over again. You heard me a little while earlier mention that the coal power plant is now going to have to ramp up because the rail belt LNG that comes from the Cook Inlet supply is running out, and they can't get more because they're being constantly hitting roadblocks from these NGO activists, unelected NGO activists, and of course those that are elected. Look at what Biden did to us for the last 4 years, and now Trump is trying to reopen things back up again for us. But there's so many roadblocks still sitting directly in front of us that the odds of anything really getting started and towards the development stage of actually breaking ground somewhere to be able to do anything is slim to none. Because by the time they get done with all the studies, all the lawsuits, and everything else that's required to even get to the development stage, we're decades down the road. And you can't start something right now, have 4 years, and expect to be able to get it off the ground. Because as soon as the next administration comes in and they're not favorable to development of resources, they'll just do exactly what Biden did. All those executive orders, 70 of them, and just shut everything back down with a swipe of a pen. So just looking at this and knowing this, it really is difficult to try to justify what is going on, especially in Alaska legislature in Juneau this year. They do not care. They made it blatantly clear that deregulating anything that would be able to open up the production for mining, forestry, LNG, or oil production, all of that stuff goes completely out the window. I mean, Ambler Mine needs to be going. We need to get that road access put in so that they can get that material out of there so that we can start getting the minerals into the market. The controversial one, Pebble Mine, that should have been started a long time ago. When the engineers got done doing their surveys, environmental impacts and all of that, there was a 99% chance that the 1% chance that a biblical proportion catastrophe struck would cause any sort of ecological harm if that mine is developed. But that 1% is what the NGO activists continuously lock upon and say, oh man, look at the fish. When you look at the one tributary that comes out of where that mine is located, produce less than 1% of the salmon that is found there. Make it make sense. I mean, seriously, make it make sense. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for what I'm saying here right now, but it's the truth. Make it make sense. It just does not make any sense. So what is the plan to stop these unelected NGOs and elected officials who systematically continue to shut down the ability to develop our resources, energy, and production needs? So far, it has been to give them more of our money to keep us shut down. The real solution is to defund anything that funnels money into these NGOs that are shutting us down. When I mentioned the Native movement, Rasmussen Foundation gave the Native movement a $2 million grant. That grant was given to the Rasmussen Foundation from the municipality of Anchorage, and another portion came from the Alaska legislators through another initiative that they had, and all of that and federal grants given to Rasmussen Foundation to distribute out there to different organizations. Well, they handed $2 million to the Native movement, which is very actively doing everything they can to shut down all production that is not considered green. So if it doesn't meet their green agenda, or it's not native-owned land that's being developed, they're putting every roadblock they possibly can. Well, they ended up taking a big chunk of that money and moving it over to the Fairbanks Climate Action Coalition. Now, the Fairbanks Climate Action Coalition is just basically a subset of the Native movement. If you go and look at the records of the Native movement and who the Fairbanks Action Coalition is, you will see they're pretty much virtually indistinguishable other than the name on the outside of the letterhead that these activists are using. It's despicable that they're taking our tax money and using it to keep our state shut down. And that needs to come to an end. Cut those feed troughs off. They quit receiving the darn federal tax money that they're getting, the local state tax money that they're getting. Cut that funding off. Let's gain back control over what we Alaskans should be concentrating on, and that's for a better future for all Alaskans. Now, they give speeches about how they're saving the planet. Reality is those living here who are not on the government's take or working for these unelected NGOs can no longer afford to live here. Can't even use a fireplace to keep ourselves warm without special permits. Fairbanks is where I'm talking about here. Without finding themselves fined at -50 below. These NGO special interests have already come out and declared they will take every penny that the left wing has given them to sue the crap out of our state and President Trump to prevent anything from getting developed. And this is the Native movement that I'm talking about. Just look at the future of LNG production in Cook Inlet, and you'll know everything I've said so far is 100% true. If only they could give our state permission. If only government wouldn't pay these activists to keep Alaska locked down. If only 1/3 of Alaska's population wasn't living on the Democrat plantation welfare for their survival. If only. Those in Alaska legislature, Alaska Ledge, are paid by the special interests and NGOs to never pass anything that will open up all Alaska resources for development. Until they take a stand and flip a bird to them, nothing is ever going to change. Here is a suggestion for those making the laws. Grow a frickin' pair of balls. Point blank, just grow a pair of balls. Governor Dunleavy, during his press question and answer, Ambler, Anwar, Gulf of Alaska, LNG, etc. Nothing new is happening there. His declaration during his press briefing was just a repeat of what he said the last time President Trump was in office. Lots of chest pounding, declaring things are going to be different this time. Just wait and see. If it wasn't for Alaska's majority already declaring Governor Mike Dunleavy's proposed budget and had already ripped it up and thrown it away again like they've done year after year, I might actually believe what he has to say to be true. One project of major controversy they did mention, of course, that it was only a brief mention during his press Q&A, was Pebble Mine. And he did a good job of sidestepping the question. He knows the truth about that mine, should be standing on his soapbox demanding that it get started. The studies have been completed, and it's been determined there is a 99% chance under the current plan. Only a biblical apocalyptic event could cause the 1% catastrophe from ever happening. Sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record, but I figure the more I say it, the more people might actually start to listen. Pebble has proven it can be done, yet the 1% chance the climate unelected NGO activists lock onto. It's the only reason why it has been kept from ever happening. Feelings should not be how we govern. Seriously, stop it. That's why DEI is dying. That is why President Trump has made sure DEI ends up dying, and we need to make sure that it goes out the door, because these feelings are getting in the way of reality, and we got to stop taking a knee and praying, begging these people, oh, I'm sorry, I mispronounced you. I'm not sorry. Seriously, on my end, I'm not sorry. If I mispronounced you, man, then you better make yourself look more like what you want to be if you don't want me to mispronounce you. Especially if you're some guy dressing up as a woman and expect me to think something different. Same thing goes for our energy needs and our production and getting our resources into the market. We need to stop taking a knee to these NGO activists, these elected officials out there like Biden and whatnot. I mean, Senator Lisa Murkowski voted for Haaland that did everything in her power to completely shut down anything that had to do with resource development within our state. And yet, Lisa Murkowski is supposed to be a Republican, but obviously she isn't. Just like the Senate and House majority in Juneau right now, the main committees that are in charge of things have a good majority of Republicans within them, but they're the rhino Republicans. They're the ones that have been there for decades and don't hesitate to sell out the best interests of Alaska to make sure their unelected bureaucrats out there, these special interests, get the money that they want. And I think this is kind of a good place right here to segue into my final video. And this is Alaska AFL-CIO. They came out here, it was, excuse me, Friday. It's about a 20-minute long video, but don't panic. I'm not going to keep you here for 20 minutes. I cut it down to about 4 and added a bunch of stuff onto it. You might get a kick out of it. You might not. I put a lot of work, I think, into it so that you guys could get a clear understanding of those that are doing everything in their power right now to stop the development of resources here within our great state. And then after this video is over with, I got just a tiny little bit more to add on for my final thoughts. And then I'll bid you guys all a good night. So here is what Alaska AFL had to say, and cut it down, like I said, to about 4 minutes out of their 20-minute video. Enjoy.
So
we're just a special interest group. You are the people.
Just working people. That's all. I don't know. I don't even know how many bills there are, but at least 30 to 40 on our list that we're at least going to have our eye on. That doesn't mean they're all going to move like lightning, right? There's going to be hundreds of bills. They don't all move. And that's something to know. If you see a bill introduced, it doesn't mean it's going to make it through both bodies. It's actually likely not to, right, as we get closer to the end. So we, at the staff at the AFL-CIO, our lobbyists, our affiliates, we're all eyes on Juneau, as you said at the beginning, watching these bills kick off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't maybe run the place, but that's just how the process works. I know people don't like to do this. People don't like to make predictions because they don't want to be wrong. But if you broke out a crystal ball, what would you predict are some things that might happen this legislative session with what we've seen so far?
Sure. And I'm not telling any state secrets here. If you've read the news at all and read the Alaska Current, the Alaska Beacon, the ADN, the Newsminer, education is at the front of everyone's minds. Our school districts are struggling. They have multi-million-dollar deficits. We can't keep teachers. We're closing schools. Everyone in the House majority, many members of the Senate majority, it came out in their priorities. They want to deal with the base student allocation or the funding that comes from the state to our school districts. Guns a-blazing towards education funding. Friday is the first meeting of the House Education Committee. I would expect something to come out of that committee, right? That's going to be their charge. That committee is made up of educators and school board members. It's amazing to know that all of these people, regardless of party, know something about their district or the education system. So I expect something to come out of there because we need to get going on this. So that's going to be top of mind. They want to get that passed because then, as we saw last time, we were able to pass a permanent increase to the BSA, ultimately vetoed by Governor Dunleavy. I might say deja vu all over again in the famous words of Yogi Berra. And every year we get closer and closer to getting enough members to override the veto. We haven't made that threshold yet, but we're going to try really hard. I predict that coming up quick. The pension bill is going to get, hearings pretty soon. It's already in the Senate. Maybe there'll be another one in the House, right? Because they can introduce the same types of bills. That's going to be, we can do two things at once, right? And so we know the BSA is important and pensions are important. So I think that's going to come up here pretty soon. The other looming thing that doesn't just matter to the labor movement, to all Alaskans, is the energy crisis. They're having presentations right now from different producers and then people part of the administration. What are we doing about energy? What are we building? How are we going to keep our heat going? There's been articles about rolling brownouts. It's scary. People want to heat their homes. We might be having record warm temperatures right now. That is not a guarantee for the future. We need to have energy. So energy is a big deal. Right. I think those are kind of the three top of mind things that I heard from both the House majority and the Senate majority leadership. So I know that means they're signaling what they want to deal with. I do predict that just like last session, there are going to be some really popular bills that pass both bodies with a lot of support that meet the veto pen of the governor. It's unfortunate. It's what we've been dealing with for years. The other thing I'll predict, and this is not a hot take at all, is that the budget gets done at the very last minute. And a lot of
who would have thought
craziness happens at the end, of course. And then we have to wait for the line item veto of the governor. I'm excited to know that more pro-labor people are elected. So I know our issues are going to be at the front of everyone's minds as well. So, I predict hijinks and shenanigans like every session. But I predict our priorities are their priorities. And so we're going to have a lot of work to do.
That always seems a safe bet to predict some sort of hijinks, and I'm going to hold you to it. Maybe we'll come back at the end of session. We'll roll the tape and see exactly what happened. So, we're just a special interest group. You are the people.
Just working people. That's all.
I always get a chuckle out of that last little bit right there where they go, "We are the special interest." It's just blows me away that how openly they admit who they are and what they're all about. Okay, final thoughts, and then we'll call it a good evening to everybody out there. Will Alaskans finally flip the bird to the federal government and all the lawsuits that these NGO activists out there, the special interests, keep putting against us to prevent any of these projects from happening? It takes decades of studies and going through the permitting process just to be able to get to start building. They are constantly being shut down by those same unelected NGOs, climate alarmist activist lawsuits. Then just when they make it past all the hurdles in the way, Pebble Mine's a good example of that, once again they find themselves getting shut down again by the next frivolous lawsuit or unfriendly administration in charge. Sadly, Governor Dunleavy, during his press conference, was just another day for him to get upon his soapbox, declaring, "Look at me. We're pretending President Trump will change things, do some chest pounding for emphasis, but reality is all business as normal in Juneau. Alaska Ledge is completely under the control of the special interest NGOs, unelected bureaucracy running the show. Because of this, nothing will change. If only Alaska Ledge would deregulate the ESG, DEI, carbon capture, carbon credit, climate Ponzi scam, and grow a pair of balls and flip a bird to the feds and unelected bureaucrat NGOs of Alaska, Alaskans might have an actual chance of living up here and living up to our motto, North to Alaska, North to the future, and actually have it going somewhere instead of just down the toilet. Thank you guys all for being here tonight. It has been awesome to have you here. If you haven't liked and shared this video, please do. You can always find this video again afterwards on X and Facebook and YouTube and Rumble. And while we're live, you can always find it on our website at politadick.com. When we're live there too. And if you happen to stop by our website, please hit that donate page and chip in a couple of bucks, make it affordable again so that I can get out there and start doing more broadcasting at different events. I know the Alaska School of Government was tonight at 7 o'clock. And I never saw a notification that they went live there. It's been kind of hit or miss, and I kind of want to get back into doing that again, but coffers are kind of on the short side to be able to do this, re-upping all of the stuff this year for being able to do what I'm doing right now was a lot more expensive than it was in previous years. Inflation and Biden sure did a number on being able to do this kind of stuff. Thank you all for being here once again. Like and share this video, and we'll see you guys here in just a couple of days.